Dr. Kara Larson, welcome to the Biohacking Secrets Show.
Thank you for having me. I'm so excited to be here.
I'm very excited, too, to talk about all things productivity. Before we kind of dive into that, maybe you could give our listeners who may not be familiar with your work a little bit of your origin story or background, if you will.
Yeah. So I have been a productivity and performance nerd for a very long time. I recently went back and calculated how much time I've saved myself through doing various things in high school, college, work, etc. And over the course of my life, I've saved approximately $270,000 in 8 years, which is kind of mind blowing.
That's pretty good.
I mean, it wasn't always that way. And there are always hard moments. And for me, when I knew I had hit a productivity plateau and I was in a really, really dark space, I was actually working at a law firm in downtown Boston.
Oh, is that why you were in a dark space?
The law firm, it wasn't the best fit for me. It could be, a really good fit for other people. I think that was part of it, but it wasn't the whole story. There was more going on. 'Cause you can be productive no matter what job you're in, right? But it was a very intense environment. And I was at that time waking up to this beep, beep, beep of an alarm. And it wasn't the beep, beep, beep to get me up in the morning. It was a beep, beep, beep to tell me it was time to get out from underneath my desk and get back to work because lunchtime was over. And that was a pivotal moment for me because at that time I was working, 10 to 12 hour days, so really long days, and my energy was totally tanked at the end of the day. I ended up getting scarlet fever of all things. So my health was starting to go down the toilet and I was just never home.
Was all this taking place? Was this in like the 1700s? How'd you get scarlet?
Fun fact about scarlet fever. It is a version of strep throat, except on top of the strep throat, you get a full body rash.
Oh, that sounds fun.
It was super fun.
And what were you doing under the desk? Were you sleeping or napping? Meditating?
I was napping. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I was napping.
Yeah. All right.
It was a better use of my time at that time to get in a couple extra hours of sleep and have a liquid lunch,
Totally. And you probably found that like if you ate a solid lunch, you'd be a little bit more tired or groggy or not as mentally sharp after, or no, is it something else?
I would sometimes eat a solid lunch, but honestly, it was in part for the speed and the ease. It is much easier to keep working and just sip something down than it is to be eating with a fork. So that was one of my, intermediate productivity hacks. But anyways, eventually I decided, staff in the ground, no more, right? I can only take this so much longer. There has to be a better way, right? It might not even be the job, but there has to be a better way, a better approach to how I'm doing things. And I did, in that instance, I did end up quitting the job, and I did some traveling. I explored a lot of yoga, meditation, kind of like energy type of stuff, which was completely the opposite of any of my interests previously. I'm very, logic brain oriented.
You had enough with the logic. You needed to kind of go to the other side of the continuum. The pendulum had to swing, right?
Exactly. Yes. I was like, okay, I feel like I've done everything logical I can possibly do. what else is there, right? Where can I find some things to grab that are in the space opposite from what I've pulled from before?
That's cool.
And yeah, that took me to Japan, Korea, India. I did a lot of coaching, emotional intelligence work, all of these different things before I hopped back into the workspace and also started taking on my own clients so that, now I was in the space of not having this beep, beep, beep waking up in the or at lunchtime, right? Instead, I could be hearing the tweet, 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 right, of the birds outside the window. And I had the spaciousness and also these new tools, which I can share, to help me, whether I was back in a law firm type environment or in a different career and environment where I had a little bit more flexibility.
For sure. And before we get to those tools, I mean, it sounds like you were kind of having your almost like eat, pray, love moment. And I'm curious, like, were there any epiphanies along the way? Because like you weren't necessarily working your butt off where you're like, just figuring out better ways to make the widget or improve efficiency or anything like that. Like, what were some of the epiphanies or like aha moments you experienced during these travels and dabbling into yoga and meditation and some of these other practices? Do you recall any in particular?
Yeah, I'll answer that, and I'll share just a little bit of where also the yoga came from it. I was actually first introduced, I did indoor track in undergrad, and it was something that we used kind of to support with stretching, but there's the breathing component of yoga as well. And I didn't fully appreciate the breathing component until grad school, where I took my first paid yoga class with one of my friends. And I had happened to have been marathon training the year prior, and I took this yoga class, and afterwards I just had this high. It was almost like I had run 10 miles and I was like, what? I barely did anything. So that sparked the initial curiosity, and I kind of just dove all the way in. I did a yoga teacher training actually in tandem with my law firm job, kind of trying to convince myself that maybe I didn't have to quit, but it actually did confirm it. It was time to let the job go. But some of my ahas were, taking the time to be in my body, taking the time to focus on my breath. Really, people talk about it, right? It really did, though, help me boost my awareness, become more present, realize where part of my thoughts were just anxiety, worry, and they weren't constructive, right? That's not forwarding. It's good to know what might be a concern in the future so you can address it, but having a constant circle of worry and stress all of the time in the background just is going to wear you down over time. Sure. And when I was in India, that was the first time I had ever done, so I did a second yoga teacher training there, a different form. I was doing Kundalini yoga.
Oh, but cool. The breath of fire.
Yes, fire, yes. And it was just such an eye-opening experience to be there. And I remember stepping outside of the cab coming from the airport, and this guy just lets me off. He's supposed to be taking me to the yoga studio, right, the ashram, and I get out and I know we're not at the ashram. But I'm like, okay, wait, I guess I'm supposed to wait. I don't know what's happening, right? There are a lot of people milling about. And I remember noticing, because I'd been doing some of this yoga work, and in my mind, there was part of me that's like, oh my gosh, is someone going to mug me and steal my stuff? And then the other part of me is like, Kara, you know nothing about these people or this place. Like, I know you're uncomfortable, but that doesn't mean these people are just going to go out and mug you. They're probably really friendly. So I just remember having kind of like that dichotomy in thought. And yeah, everyone was super friendly. And after that moment passed, I see this little moped, driving up to come and pick me and my luggage up and take me over this footbridge. So there was a reason the cab stopped. They weren't just, throwing me out early.
Yeah, for sure. We had a moment like that in, I think it was in like 2007 in Egypt. My brother was living in Cairo, and we went, checked out the pyramids, and then we went to Luxor. And we had a driver that was like taking us around, spoke no English, just Arabic. My brother was the only one that kind of spoke Arabic, and his name was Abdul Arafua. And at the end of the day, like, we'd had a great time with him. His teeth were like almost black because he smoked so much hookah. And like every time we'd stop, he'd like find a hookah somewhere and he'd get a hookah while we do our things. But like, we had a great day with him. And then he says at the end of the day, like, would you guys like to come meet my family? And we're all like, sure, that sounds awesome. And then we're driving into like these kind of shady neighborhoods, and it's getting darker and there's no street lights. And I said to my brother, because we both also speak Spanish, and I wanted to make sure that Abdul Rafu didn't understand what I was saying. I asked my brother in Spanish, like, do you think we're safe, or are we in a bad situation right now? And my brother's like, I think we're good. And then we got there and we met like his 2 wives and like 10 kids, and he stopped on the way and got us like Coca-Colas, you know what I mean? And spent like, I don't know, it was just this gesture of generosity and kindness. And he showed us his cows and animals and all around his place. And we just hung out and like did our best to communicate for a long time. But it was on the other side of, oh crap, I wonder if I'm going to get mugged or something terrible is going to happen to me, if I continue along this path, right? Yeah.
Yeah. And I think, those thoughts also parallel in the workspace when you're doing something uncomfortable. It's really easy to make some assumptions to make yourself, feel like you know what's going on, but they're not always true or useful.
Totally. Let's talk a little bit. I mean, just about everyone, I don't want to make assumptions about our audience, but a lot of our listeners have jobs, right? And would benefit from some of the strategies and the framework that you've put together. So why don't we kind of dive in and start talking about a little bit of what you've got going on at cozymind.me and some of the cool things you put together for our listeners today.
Yeah, I would love to give you guys some tools. And you heard it here first. We have this brand new performance diamond framework. So there's 4 parts to this framework. One of them, we cover what we call habit maps. The second part is what we call brain breaks. The third part is focusing on what we call productivity routines. And then the fourth part is a little bit of an all-encompassing part, but it does have categories. But this is where we do performance hacks. So those are the 4 parts of our performance diamond framework. And should I just cover it all? Is there an area that you think your listeners would like me to go a little deeper in?
Sure. Well, yeah, let's see. We'll explore. So you said, I'm going to work backwards because I missed the first 2 and got the last 2, but you said performance hacks, you said productivity routines, and then what were numbers 2 and 1?
Yeah, habit maps and brain breaks.
Habit maps and brain breaks. Okay, cool. So we've got brain breaks, habit maps, productivity routines, and performance hacks. Let's start with brain breaks.
Great.
What is a brain break?
So brain break is, very simply put, it's normally a form of meditation, breath work, or movement that helps you get out of the logic of your mind and into your body, your breath, or focusing on something external, such as nature. So it's a way for you to give yourself a little mental recovery during the day, right? Olympic athletes recover their body. That's how they become more successful. It's how they're able to, excel in the field that they do. But we do not often give ourselves the same rest for our minds during the workday.
Yeah.
Yet we still expect the same results.
So it's like through these practices of meditation, breath work, movement, time in nature, it's a metaphorical nap for your brain under the desk.
Yes.
I don't know if
you can nap under the desk if you would like. I like where you're going with that.
I don't know. I was trying. It felt a little forced.
Very similar. There are some great practices lying down that I can explain, but first let me tell you why you might want to, add these into your life. What are some benefits? And I'm actually going to reference, so Chris Bailey is also in the productivity space. He wrote a book called The Productivity Project, and he has a new audio book called How to Train Your Mind. And he basically described brain breaks, but using the word meditation. And I was like, yes, this is awesome. And in his estimate, granted, he doesn't do full, clinical studies. So take these numbers with a grain of salt. But he estimates that for every 1 minute we spend doing these brain breaks, we get 9 minutes back in our day. And he estimates that up to 30 minutes per day. So if you were to do the calculation of 30 minutes of brain breaks times 9, you can actually increase your productivity by 4.5 hours a day in theory if you really aren't practicing these at all. And the way that calculation works is your productivity is a function of your intentionality with your work, your energy, your focus, and the actual amount of time a task takes for you to complete. And the brain breaks actually support you on all of those levels because they help you eliminate distractions. They help you be more intentional with your work. They give you more attention and focus, and that lends itself to you doing the tasks that are more intentional in less time.
For sure. That's cool. That makes sense too. I've found that as well. Like there are many days that I don't necessarily feel like I want to work out or break a sweat or something like that. But it's not even that I'm like, oh, I need to do this for my abs. It's like, no, I need to do this for my brain. Like my brain feels so much better if I move a little bit and sweat and get outside and soak up some sunshine and breathe some fresh air. And as you mentioned earlier, I'm intentional with my breathing, and kind of fall into almost like a meditative breathing pattern during the practice. It's just a little bit of a shift in like what is our intentionality with these practices? Because if it's just like I want to get off these 20 pounds because I don't like the way they make me feel, you're a lot less likely to stick with something that is a fantastic habit for optimizing your cognitive performance and productivity.
Exactly. And so I have a business partner, Joaquin, and the clients that we work with. So if you're looking to know kind of what's the sweet spot for how long should I take with each of these breaks, we recommend 5 minutes because it's really supportive and you can do a lot of different types of brain breaks in that space of time. If you're really short on time, I recommend using a 2-minute break, but you're pretty limited to just breathing practices in 2 minutes. It's really hard to do anything else in a 2-minute time frame. And if you need a longer boost, say you've done a really long work interval, or maybe it's towards the end of the day and you can just tell your mind is not what it was at the beginning of the day, that's where we normally recommend doing at least a 10-minute break, maybe a little bit longer if it feels good.
Yeah, totally. And I hear you, like 2 minutes is not very much time. Now, my 19-year-old self might have had a few other things that I was able to do in 2 minutes that I wasn't exactly proud of, but we don't need to go there. What you're saying totally makes sense. Maybe what are some of your favorite brain breaks? Like the things that you've tried a whole bunch of this stuff. What stuck for you? What do you find yourself going to most often? And like, I realized a lot of people, even people in the health space, like there are many who have not meditated before. And when you talk to them about breath work, they're like, what is that? Kind of like Wim Hof, and that's where a lot of the mass consciousness in the space is. So what are some of your favorites? And specifically, like, how do you do them, and yeah.
Yeah, that's a great question. So I probably know way more brain breaks than I should ever share on any podcast, etc. But my go-tos, one of them is I love doing an inversion at least once a day. So the inversions come from yin yoga. I basically take my body, and you can do it in a bed. You could do it on a couch. I prefer to do it on a floor because I like to do multiple health modalities at once. So I roll out a grounding mat, and then I scooch my buns and my hips as close to the wall as possible, rotate my legs up so that they're up and down, and that's the inversion in the simplest form. And what that does is it actually supports your lymph fluid, which doesn't have a pump in your body and contains all of your immune cells. And it also contains things such as lactic acid from when you're running, and it drains it directly to your heart while you're getting all the benefits of the grounding mat. And if you want to throw in some meditation or breath work, great.
I like that. That's pretty cool. For a while, I got super into inverted sun gazing. Now, nobody listening, we gotta preface this because it makes people want to run out and try everything. Don't try this at home. It takes training and practice. You never want to stare directly at the sun. I'm not recommending anyone sun gazes. You can hurt yourself. You can blind yourself. So I'm telling a story here about my experience, and this is not something you should do unless you've been properly trained and built up to it slowly. But I used to love doing inverted sun gazing in the morning, where I would just look towards the sun from a headstand position and kind of soak it up at first part of the day to help wake my brain up. And then, of course, you get like that, the changing of the blood flow and that sort of thing. And I might get back into that once if the weather continues to warm up here in Chicago. That's a great reminder.
Yeah, it's a beautiful example. However, if it's not accessible, you can just throw your legs up a wall.
Yeah, much easier, much easier. And there's also I think Teeter is the company. They make these gravity boots where you can hook them up to like a pull-up bar and then hang upside down. And I used those a ton in Florida when I was living there, and I loved it. And I've been thinking about, I just made a big do an inversion once a day note on my yellow legal pad and circled it, because I do love inversions and how I feel afterwards. I notice a big difference, and I have not been doing too many inversions outside of like periodically working them into a yoga class, That's a great reminder. I love it.
Let's see. Should I share one more, or do you want to move on?
Please. Yeah.
All right. So I love breathing practices. A lot of breathing practices. There are a lot of kind of similarities amongst breathing practices. An easy one to share that you could do even if you were driving, say, and listening to the podcast, is simply just breathing in through your nose, filling all the way up, and then breathing out slowly through your lips. So just letting it out through your mouth. So
you've got your lips kind of pursed, almost like, I don't know, like you're blowing out birthday candles?
That might be exaggerated. I don't think that's necessary. But as long as you're breathing in through the nose and it's coming out through your mouth, even if it was coming out through your teeth,
yeah,
it would work.
And does it matter the ratio of time between the inhale to the exhale or anything like that? Or is it just breathe in through the nose, out through the mouth, and it's all good? Whatever feels good.
I generally do whatever feels good, but for those who are really new to breathing practices, and if you're coming off of a really stressful piece of work, it can be nice to see if you can balance out your inhale and your exhale, just so that you're basically rebalancing your body, and it helps you bring more awareness to your timing. It doesn't have to be perfect, but that's why I might recommend doing that. And you can, add some stuff to this as well. You could hold after your inhale. You could hold after your exhale. And you can also incorporate what's called yogic breathing, where you're fully expanding your belly, fully expanding your chest, and you're expanding your chest so much that it actually moves into clavicular breathing, where you're actually doing a small expansion into your clavicle, and then you let it all out slowly. So clavicle, chest, belly. That would be a full yogic breath and a full release. But you can play around with just doing belly, just doing chest also.
I like it. These are good. So to recap, we've got your inversions that you can do, up against a wall. We've got your breathing in through your nose and out through your mouth. You can kind of synchronize or time so that the inhale and the exhale are evenly allocated the same amount of seconds. And you can even play around with yogic breathing, where you're kind of inhaling all the way down into your lower abdomen, then your upper abdomen, then your chest, then your clavicles, and then you're kind of reversing that, going from your clavicle to your chest, to your upper abdomen, to your lower abdomen.
Exactly.
Nice. I like it. And then you decide 2 minutes, 5 minutes, whatever suits the scenario and your preferences.
Exactly. Your preferences, your time, and I don't know the working intervals, or if people listening to this are tracking their working intervals. I love tracking things, so I do. But for anyone using, say, a Pomodoro style working interval, that's where the 5-minute breaks are really nice.
Those are,
and for those who
is that something
familiar,
you recommend? Yeah, can you explain what that is for our listeners?
Yeah. So, and the Pomodoro intervals vary a little bit from person to person. My favorite it's a shorter working interval generally. So for me, I normally do 25 minutes on for work, and then a 5-minute break, and then do another 25 minutes on. So it's kind of like this short burst of work followed by a short break. That's the general Pomodoro.
I like that too.
Have you experimented with this yourself?
Yes, it depends on what I'm doing. If it's something that there are certain tasks that require, for me, if you've ever played Mario Kart, I'm kind of like Donkey Kong, where I take a long time to get going, but then once I'm going, I'm faster than everybody, but I kind of get my butt kicked at the beginning. And if it's a writing project or something, then I need longer work intervals, because I'm sometimes the first 20, 30 minutes, I'm just not there, then I'm finally in the zone. With most things, though, I like the same 25-5. And, but then I also, sometimes if I'm really in the zone, I just keep going. And, but I start out the day with a workout or meditation or cold shower or something, you know what I mean? So I've already had some brain breaks, and I'm all right, I can rock. And then when I start feeling like I need a break, then I'll go do something, Yeah.
And that is a perfect example of when you should think about taking your brain breaks. You can schedule them, insert them into a Pomodoro. But like you said, when you start feeling tired, just go and take a break. And I find that a lot of people, myself included, I can take what I term distraction breaks instead of brain breaks. So I'll get up and, go to the kitchen because I think I want a snack, but really I just want to get away from the work. When I was working in more of an office space, it might be getting up just to use the restroom, or getting up just to stretch my legs and see if I can find someone to talk to for a couple minutes. And while it's good to at least get away from your workspace, I would actually recommend if you can do your brain breaks, at least stand up and sit not in front of your computer. It will help you because you're kind of signaling to your mind that, you know, I'm going on break. We're not in full work mode. It can make them more effective.
Yeah, and don't go from your computer to your cell phone.
Exactly. Yes. So yeah, just being aware that you might be taking distraction breaks, and while they're not bad, they're just not as effective at giving you that extra intentionality, focus, attention, energy.
Totally. I actually had a fun conversation with a friend yesterday. She's living in New York and doing some school stuff, and she'd just been totally exhausted, like bordering on burnt out. And she's like, I'm taking Adderall, I'm drinking caffeine, you know, trying to get through the day and blah, blah, blah. And I was like, well, you're living in New York. And she was like, yeah. And I'm like, okay, if I share something that could really help you, like, are you open to it, even though it might be uncomfortable and a little bit of a hard conversation? She's like, yeah. I'm like, you're getting freaking microwaved in New York. I'm like, all the Wi-Fi routers, the 7 to 10 wireless and Bluetooth devices that people have, all the towers everywhere. I'm like, that's such a big part of why people are needing these prescriptions to stimulate themselves. And I'm like, I've tried that stuff in college. I got to talk to a doctor to give me Adderall when I was like a junior in college. And I was like, this stuff's amazing, because someone, you know, one of my friends gave me one, and I was like, I'm so much smarter with this. I don't take it now. But, and I mentioned that to her. So she's like, all right, I'm going to go to take a vacation and like somewhere else. She goes, my energy was through the roof. I felt so good. My brain was firing. I wasn't like depressed and anxious. I'm like, yeah, it's where we live, and that part of the environment plays such a big role in how we feel and our perceived energy levels, and even our physical energy levels, how well the mitochondria are able to function. But no one's really looking at like, okay, I'm living in, you know, a skyscraper in downtown New York versus like I'm living in a place that's a little bit closer to nature and like has more of the natural frequencies that we have evolved with over long periods of time there. I just wanted to mention that because it was like, yeah, I thought for a long time, I'm like, oh, I need so much caffeine, or I need this. And she's like, I thought I needed Adderall. And then as soon as I went away, I was like, I didn't even need to take Adderall. You know, little bit related, maybe a bit tangential.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I think it's all related, right? There are emotional stressors, there are environmental stressors, and it's really hard when they're your baseline to know that they're exhausting you.
Yeah, right. Exactly. It's almost like an elimination diet. You go and it's not until you cut out all the things that you've been consistently eating that you're like, I can actually feel this good. And then you become where like you want to feel that way more of the time, you know? Sometimes you don't even know how good you could feel with like brain breaks, for example, until you start working some brain breaks into your day. I love it. Anything else on brain breaks that you wanted to cover, or should we move on to habit maps?
Actually, I'd love to pivot to productivity routines, just because you actually gave it a great opener without knowing.
Oh no, I planned that one.
Yeah, you planned it 100%.
Yeah. Take credit whenever possible.
But yes, you gave us the perfect segue when we were talking about Pomodoro. And you mentioned that different types of tasks, sometimes it takes you 20 to 30 minutes to really get into the task. Where productivity routines are useful is it helps you get into the task faster. And what these productivity routines are, most of us already have one, but it's basically how you're opening your work. So what is your ritual to get into your workspace? And it might be a little bit different, for example, when you're doing research versus when you're, you know, interviewing someone on a podcast. But for me, as an example, part of my productivity routine is plugging in my computer so that I don't have to worry about, low battery if I want to take a longer working interval. So that eliminates one distraction. I put, my phone away and on silent so that, I can eliminate another distraction. And then I have an audio component, which when I do productivity routines with others, I always recommend eliminating at least one or more distractions. I always recommend adding in some sort of audio component. I recommend doing some sort of intentionality boost to your routine, so being intentional with your work. And then I like to do something either calming or fun for the motivational side of things. But the more that you can have a little bit of a intentional ritual to how you open up your work, the more effective you will be, because you're basically developing that neural pathway in your mind that says, oh, hey, it's work time.
Yeah, it's almost like a Pavlovian trigger.
Exactly.
What do you listen to? I mean, I've listened to I like Mozart a lot. I find that sometimes words are a bit of a problem if I'm trying to be productive and that, I'm listening to Marshall Mathers. It's too much going on at once, but Mozart, I do pretty well with. And especially if it's background noise, but what do you do for the audio component? What do you listen to? Or did I misunderstand that?
Yes. No, you got it. Spot on. Big check mark. The number one thing I recommend is don't listen to lyrics. So you got that one down. And for me, there's actually a company called Focus at Will, and they provide stations, all different types, because everyone has kind of different background music that they prefer. So some of these, actually one of my favorite stations is they recorded coffee shops and then they dimmed out anything distracting and then they added in these focus frequencies. So frequencies that help you focus and stay concentrated, under the radar. You won't notice them.
That's sweet.
And that is one of my absolute favorite stations. But they have it instrumental. They have it, nature sounds. Granted, it is a subscription, so it does cost a little bit of money, but I think it's worth every single dollar.
No kidding. Okay, so Focus at Will, and you like the coffee shops one. What's another one that you really like?
There is... So they have a deep station. It's kind of like techno chill is how I would describe it. I really like that station. Sometimes, actually, when I first started using the station, they had a neurospace station, and it was really, if you were to kind of put EDM music into a productivity space, it's kind of like that. So it's pretty high intensity. But for some reason, that used to really work for me. It's a little too much for me these days. But yeah, I used to love that station. And for those of you who are looking for options that don't cost anything, I think Mozart was a great example, what you offered. But I also love listening to movie tracks. So Lord of the Rings, Harry Potter, things like that too.
That's a great suggestion. We have, I love it. The coffee shop one, this is just to tickle my own curiosity. But what do you hear? Are you hearing them grind the coffee beans or steam the milk? What's going on there?
It sounds a lot like just a bunch of people talking, and occasionally there's clinking of dishes and some grinding noises, but for the most part it's kind of muted conversation. And I'm an extrovert, and so I do really well with that station, in part because I think my brain thinks I'm surrounded by people.
Yeah.
And that's, sometimes all I need for a little extra boost as well.
Totally. Yeah. That's awesome. Okay. So productivity routines, essentially you're setting your brain up with rituals and patterns so that it knows, okay, I do this when I'm getting ready to do work. And you're kind of preparing yourself and setting the stage. Focus at Will's a big one. Mozart, as I mentioned, and then movie soundtracks for the audio component. Anything else with productivity routines that you'd like to cover?
So the intentional, so set an intention, right? That one's pretty self-explanatory. Like what I would set some sort of work goal, like what you would like to accomplish in whatever working interval you're doing. I always feel like that's really important if it's not something you're already doing. And then in terms of the motivational, this one's kind of like cherry on top. I think, audio is really good. Eliminate any distractions you can. For me, part of eliminating distractions is also wearing noise canceling headphones, because then I'm surrounded by my focus music, and I love my dog to death. He's really not that noisy, but it does, if he's making any weird sounds, I won't get distracted by him or by anything else outside.
That's a really good suggestion.
For the motivational side of things, I like to be cozy. When I'm cozy and relaxed, I work the best. So I like to have a fuzzy blanket and like a pillow tucked in nearby, because that supports me and my routine. Other people that I have coached, some like things that are a little bit more active. Or one example of a motivational technique that I used when I was in the law firm and not super heavy was I used an essential oil as part of my routine to kind of give me a boost midday. So, I'd set up my music and everything, and then I would roll some of this essential oil, which was a citrus. If you're looking for really good blends, there's a company called doTERRA, DOTERRA. Or since it's a citrus blend, right, you could just buy yourself maybe some lemon or some orange, but that's a really good uplifting scent if you want to use your sense of smell. And then another motivator could be doing some sort of dance or having a little, mantra for yourself, like, I am alive, awake, alert, and enthusiastic.
I am alive, awake, alert, and enthusiastic. I like it. All right, cool. Very good. Please allow me just to take a quick break. I have to use the restroom again. Not again for your episode, but same thing. I'll be right back and we'll continue. We'll just edit this part out. All right, lovely. So that covers our productivity routines. Do you want to talk about habit maps or performance hacks?
Let's do habit maps first.
Not one or the other. Pick one of your next two.
So, habit maps. I know we've already thrown, a lot at you guys. I hope you're still buckled up and ready to go.
Good stuff.
But habit maps, thank you. Habit maps are something that I borrowed some of the framework from someone else. So Dr. BJ Fogg has a book called Tiny Habits. It's an excellent read if you'd like to throw, something on your Kindle or audio book list. Maybe you're still into physical copies. Those are fun too. Anyways,
thank you, by the way, of when you refer to or were inspired by other people's work. It's nice to hear someone that gives credit. A lot of people borrow things liberally and never mention the other person.
Well,
appreciate
thank you. Yes, I like to give credit where credit is due, because I think we're all a compilation, right?
yeah, totally.
Anyway, he has a beautiful framework where habits, which he calls them behaviors, are equal to your motivation plus your ability plus the prompts. And I can describe what all three of those are in just a second. But the power in this equation is, if you were to map your ability and your motivation, there is a line called an action line, where if your motivation, your ability, and your prompts are above this action line in sum, then you will automatically complete that behavior or habit. And if it's below, then you won't. So this is a great way to look at your habits and set yourself up for success the first time. But also, if it's not working, right, you can tweak your motivation, your prompt, and your ability to get yourself over that action line.
Yeah, or realize maybe I need to develop my ability in order to get this done. I'm motivated.
Exactly.
I'm doing the prompts and it's not getting done. I've got to get better.
Exactly. And there are a lot of weeds that you can get to when in going through this process. But let me just overlay kind of the basic 4 steps to habit mapping. So number 1 is identifying your habit of interest. And it might be a habit that you're adding. It might be a habit that you'd like to remove, or it might be something you're swapping, which is a combination of adding and removing. Number 2, you would then move into the mapping process, which I'll describe in a second because it's the most complicated part of the habit mapping strategy. So you'll map the habit. And then number 3, you do what I call test driving the habit, which is you're going to visualize going through your motivation prompt ability process to do that habit in your mind. And the reason I recommend that is you can kind of see whether you think you're going to need to buy anything. You can see if you have some hesitations come up in your thoughts around doing some of this habits. For example, if you were going to implement some brain breaks at work, sometimes people get self-conscious. So that might be a thought that pops up for you that you can then, work on addressing. So those are kind of why you might want to visualize the process and test drive the process. You can kind of see ahead of time if you can get any kinks out of the way.
Mm-hmm. And you were saying visualize yourself like going through the process and the motivation and everything like that. Okay. I think did we already talk about how to do the motivation part?
No, we'll map in just a second.
Cool.
I just find it can be sometimes too much to digest because that's the most nitty gritty part of the whole process.
Gotcha. Okay. Please proceed.
Yeah, no problem. But yeah, so we'll identify, we'll map, which I'll describe at the end. We're going to visualize to test drive. And then the final step is setting that start date. And for setting the start date, I also would recommend, while you're setting the start date, to set a check-in date for yourself as a reoccurring prompt, if you can as well. Because while start dates are all well and good, I think one of the keys to habit consistency is checking in and seeing where you fell off the map. Because you're going to fall off, the habit map at some point, right?
Mm-hmm. Maybe not.
Maybe not. Maybe you are extra special. But I find, things like vacation.
Oh, yeah.
There are just things that come up in life, right? That eventually might throw you out of certain habits.
Totally.
And I want to set you guys up for the most success possible. So it's nice to have some sort of reoccurring check-in so that you can be like, oh, yeah, that habit. Am I doing it or not? But
I think we also have so many times we think something's going to take us not as much time as it actually is going to take us, or it winds up. And then we lose motivation. We stop. And Garrett White from Warrior has this line where he's like, if you're tired of failing, stop effing quitting. Meaning stick with it longer so that you achieve what you have set it as your intention to achieve and what you came here to do. Don't plant some seeds and then go to a different field before they even have a chance to grow and sprout, And I think those check-in dates are pretty good for that. If you set it and you're like, okay, this could take me 3 months. I got to check in with myself. How often do you do those?
Oh, check-in
dates.
That depends on your habit a little bit. So if it's a daily habit and it's really fresh and new for you, it's not something you've ever started before, I would probably do every other day check-ins just to keep yourself really accountable. But if it's something you've practiced a couple times and you feel, pretty good about having been consistent, at least somewhat in the past, I would say every 3 days or so.
Okay, good. So that's important. I was like, is this once a week, once every 2 weeks? But you're like, no, you got to stay on yourself. Yeah, I like that. And do you do that? What do you do? Do you put it in your calendar as a recurring reminder, or how do you set it up?
I do, yes. Or with certain things, sometimes I ask a friend to call me.
Oh, even better.
You can
then you get to talk to your friend.
Some extra and have some extra accountability. Yeah.
For sure. Yeah. I've, in the past, sometimes if I was like, I know I need to do this, but I'm not sure I can, or, I might fail. I would like not want to tell, but you realize if it's actually like in your best interest, it's almost better to just step outside of it and be like, no, I got to get someone else involved so that I have that accountability, so that I'm embarrassed if I'm like not getting it done. Like we've seen how shame can be used in a negative context, but it's also quite powerful, because like we feel shame if we're like, I'm going to quit smoking, and then we're like smoking a cigarette 2 days later. It's like embarrassing. There's a little bit of shame there, but that can motivate us to do something that's good for us too. Especially if there's someone who we care about that we have to tell what happened.
Yes. Definitely, your buns are on the line.
Yeah. Okay. I dig it. So the mapping process.
Exactly. Yeah. So let me give you an example of a habit adding using the mapping process. So say I want to weigh myself or start weighing myself every morning. The motivation might be like, hey, I want to lose weight, or maybe I just want to know where I'm at so I know where to adjust from. But like those numbers matter to me. I want to be able to start, more accurately tracking my weight. So let's say that's the motivation. For those of you who are highly analytical, that will work. For those of you who are more emotional, you might need a slightly different motivator. We'll use that as an example for now, though.
Yeah.
Your prompt. So what I might do as a prompt is use a visual prompt. So I'm going to put that scale right in front of a habit that I do in the morning. And what I do first thing every morning is I go to the bathroom. So I'm going to put that scale right in front of the bathroom where I will see it. Right. So that's
you weigh yourself before or after you've gone to the bathroom?
I prefer after, because I feel like I'm lighter,
Yeah. I mean, I would too. Sure.
I want to optimize my results here.
Yeah. Of course, you don't want artificially inflated numbers.
Yeah. Exactly. So that's an example of prompt. And then ability, right? It's the scale itself. If you're using a digital scale, right? It's really easy. You just step on it for a couple seconds, right? And step off. So that's the ability. So that would be an example of how you might do a mapping process for adding a habit.
I like it.
Now let's look at maybe removing a habit or trying to inhibit a habit. And I'll use Netflix as an example, because this is one of my, habits that I'm not always proud of, but it is there. And what I do to, so what you're going to want to do is make it, harder, right? You're going to want to inhibit the ability a little bit, and you're going to want to reduce the prompts. You may or may not be able to reduce the motivation, right? That one's a little trickier, honestly. The best way to tweak motivation, right, is to do some sort of mindset process, or often to get an external accountability, like a person involved. That is normally the best way to support with motivation, or to connect with a better why. So if your why is really superficial, like go one step deeper, either within yourself, or like, how does this supporting me help someone else that I care about?
Maybe you could give us an example of like yours with Netflix. Like how do you kind of break it down, and what did you come up with? What was your why?
Yeah. So for my why, was a little, we'll say it's a little both. One, I knew it was really bad energetically. Like, I love it. I love just like taking a break, vegging out, and watching a good show on Netflix. However, I never feel good in my body afterwards. I always feel way more tired, and I feel like it sucks my energy, and like I'm not moving my body around. So there's an energetic drain that I don't like as an after effect. And I even sometimes feel some extra mental fatigue, even though this is supposed to be my quote unquote break time. On top of that, while I am watching this show, there are other things I could be doing, such as, taking my dog on an extra nice walk, right? So there's another layer of the motivation where, if I'm substituting, say, Netflix for walking my dog, right, there could be an added benefit there for him. And I care about him and his exercise as well as my own. When I did this mapping process for Netflix, I didn't always replace it necessarily with a walk, just so that I'm clear about that. But it is just an example of, a motivation.
It was an option.
What I did do is I removed the remote prompt. So instead of the remote being out where I could see it and in an easily accessible place, so it moved into ability a little bit as well. I set my remote on a bookshelf where I never look and I never go normally during the day. And that was really effective for me because I had to take like an extra step to go to a place that I never ever go normally during my day. It's kind of out of sight. It might not be 100% out of mind, but it's more out of sight and more out of mind.
Yeah, I get that.
And that actually was enough for me to at least interrupt enough to be like, oh, I want to watch TV. Oh, it's a little bit harder for me to do. Maybe I would like to, do something else.
Yeah,
and that's all you really need. Go ahead.
For sure.
Sorry.
No, I didn't mean to cut you off. I remember I unplugged my TV when I was living in Florida for just that reason. I was like, if I have to get down on my knees, find the plug it in, then turn on the TV, it's, what you're getting into, right? If you've got your phone in airplane mode and like in order to do something on your phone, you then have to take it out of airplane mode and go do whatever you were going to do. It's like an extra added step where you're like, wait, I said I didn't want to be on my phone all the time, or wait, I said I didn't want to just veg out and watch TV when I've got this I'm trying to read more, right? For example, or I'm trying to walk my dog more or whatever. Cool. I like that.
Great. Do you feel like the mapping process makes holistic sense? Are there any questions there that you have or you think viewers or listeners might have?
I think it totally makes sense. If it's a habit that you're trying to stop, you add friction. Friction points that will almost cause you to remember why that friction point is there and why you might not want to do what you're considering instead of another activity that you feel is a better fit for the direction you would like to take your life. Right. And then it's almost like the opposite for add a habit. And then swap's pretty easy because then you're just like, instead of this, I do this.
Exactly. And I guess 2 small adds. I do, if you're swapping a habit, recommend that you take one day to practice stopping it and seeing if it's an effective stop. And what I would consider an effective stop is you go through, your interruption process, and there's at least a moment of hesitation where you're like at choice.
Okay.
Just so you can kind of test, right? If there isn't enough of a hesitation and if it's not really inhibiting you, right, you need a better stopping or like friction point, as you put it, before you can move
I think Tim I might have got that from Tim Ferriss or someone. If I did, I want to credit him. If I didn't, I don't remember who it was. It's in my brain somewhere.
But yeah, I think that's a beautiful way to frame it.
Okay,
so yeah,
cool.
I would recommend at least testing out your stop first before you do a full swap.
That makes sense. And why is that again?
Just so you know, sometimes it's a lot to do all at once. So that's number 1. Number 2, you at least know that your stop is working enough that you could add in another something else or choose something else. If you don't have an effective enough stop, if it really doesn't feel interruptive, the way that you're switching your motivation prompt and ability, then this way you at least know that where you might not be setting yourself up for success and how you're, stopping the habit before you go ahead and add it. It's just a recommendation. You don't have to, but it just makes it a little bit easier for you to troubleshoot.
Cool. Have you used any of this with people who are like drinking too much alcohol, where there's like an addiction component too? I'm just thinking about how many people struggle with drinking too much, or like they're addicted to something, whether it's cigarettes, whether it's pills. I mean, one of my friends, her brother passed from fentanyl last week, and it's just these are some big challenges that our fellow brothers and sisters are facing, and like having ways for people to get out of it, and to address the addiction, I think is increasingly important these days.
Yeah, 100%. I think just because in my experience, addiction is so heavily rooted also in normally emotional and mindset work as well, that I suspect you wouldn't be able, I don't know if you'd be able to completely, eradicate an addiction with just the habit mapping process, but I think it definitely could support if you do find something good to substitute, and you can like slowly make that substitution more and more over time. 100%. I do think that the prompts and the motivation, depending upon how far down the rabbit hole you are with the addiction, right? If you're in a place where you can bring in other people, it'll be far more effective. But also if you're in a place where you're bringing in other people, right, then, that you're admitting, right, you have some addiction that you want to get rid of, and not everyone's in that place.
Yeah, it's almost a non-starter. You have to, the first step of like AA is admitting you have a problem, or some variation of that, right? And if you're not even there, you're probably not gonna get out of the gates. Cool. Let's talk about performance hacks.
Yes.
What are performance hacks?
So I categorize performance hacks. So this is a little bit of like all the secret sauce put into one. So this is where you would throw kind of like your organizational systems and scheduling. This is where like I would put delegation and automation processes. This is where I would throw some additional mindset work around performance and productivity, and also like motivational fun stuff that makes you happy, right? Happy people perform better, and also gets you excited for your day. So that kind of is the small bucket that encompasses performance hacks. And one of them, I would consider the Pomodoro technique a performance hack, because how you're approaching the timing of your work can be really effective at improving your performance and your productivity with certain tasks. And have you covered the Pareto Principle here before?
Yeah, like the 80-20 rule. Like 20% of our efforts produce 80% of our results, and then like
exactly,
you get the rest.
Yes, yeah.
No, let's refresh our listeners just in case they're not familiar. I don't talk about it like a ton.
Sure. Yeah. The Pareto Principle is that oftentimes 80 or 20%, as you mentioned, of the activities and tasks that we're doing day to day to create a specific result are actually only 20 of the 100 are creating 80% of the actionable, tangible results for whatever we're trying to create. One example I can give is I was creating my first workshop, and I was spending a lot of time reading and collecting resources. Part of the time was, creating PowerPoints, and then other part of the time I was working with a coach to kind of help me bring everything together and also incorporate experiential exercises for this particular workshop. And I found that the tasks that were giving me the most bang for my buck, so actually creating that workshop most effectively, was the coaching time, and the time I was actually on the PowerPoint. I didn't actually, it made me feel better to be researching and grabbing more information, but it really wasn't, I didn't really need it when I thought about it. It was kind of that extra 80% that I probably didn't need. And if I had just doubled down on the, working on the PowerPoint and doing the coaching work, that was, creating 80% of what I needed. So that's there's kind of the example.
A lot of that too is like, it can be imposter syndrome, where we're like, oh, I don't know enough. I need to know more. I need to accumulate more resources and do more research. And it's really just delaying you diving in and doing stuff that could help people, or even just saying, hey, I don't need to sell this for X amount of money. I need some people that want to make this change in their life and are willing to put in the work and want to be guided by someone like me. And I'm happy to guide them and hone my skill set. And then from there, my course will be even better because I'll see what challenges come up and this and that. And then it's so much easier to see, like, you then know not only how to sell your course, but what people need, what's going to come up that they didn't even think they needed, and so on and so forth. Whereas like if we're just like, oh, I'm not good enough, I need to research more. No, you need to help more people, start getting it out there, and whatever that means, it's going to be a lot better than just combing the internet or combing through books, presuming you have a solid foundation.
Exactly. And there's another way that you can use the Pareto Principle, and that's in terms of your workday. So there are times during your workday where you're going to have more energy and focus just naturally. So you can, and if you don't know those times already, you can, get out a little sheet of paper, go old school, and just check in on yourself every couple hours and rate, how your energy feels, how, whether or not you feel like you've been efficient during that work interval, what was your attention like? And you can find, that 20% of the day where you're the most energized and focused, and then do your work tasks, those, 20% of the tasks that are giving you the most benefit for the outcome you want. You can use those during that, we'll call it the Pareto Principle interval for your energy, and kind of use it synergistically.
Yeah, makes a big difference. I like it. Do you use, I've got this app on my phone called Focus Keeper. It's basically just like a Pomodoro timer. What do you use?
For Pomodoro, there's a website called Tomato Timer.
Tomato Timer.
I really like that one. When I was, that's the best free version. But the Focus at Will, actually you can set timed intervals. So now I just use that. So it'll time out however long I want to work. And generally I work in blocks of 90 minutes to 30 minutes. That's kind of my range. Normally it's more on the 90 side if I'm doing writing and reading and stuff like that. But it acts basically like a timer, because you can, set the interval and then it dings and it stops your music once the time is up.
Lovely. My Russell Brunson told me about this app called tomorrow.do. That's like basically a to-do list that lets you cross stuff off. You just touch it and it crosses it off the list. If you didn't finish it, you can move it to the next day. And I love it. I'm like, it's been like, I used to just use Notepad, or, paper lists and that sort of thing. But this like syncs between your phone and your computer. And I feel like I'm insanely more productive using it than just a regular old to-do list by hand, or, a notes app or Evernote or something like that. Yeah, it's like, couldn't recommend tomorrow.do anymore.
Yeah, that's awesome. I think it is really important to have a way to capture things and schedule them. I still have a hard time getting away from doing all of that in Google Calendar.
Yeah.
I just love making I just use it for so many things. And kind of like you said, I will just reschedule my like little blocks to the next. But everyone has the application that works for them. If you don't, I encourage you to test out a couple and find the one that works for you. But yeah, little hacks and automated tools are awesome.
Yeah, I love it. And I love Google Calendar too. I use that for just about everything. Dr. Carol Larson, this has been great. You have like a free gift and guys, if you've enjoyed this conversation, share it up. Friends, family, coworkers, give it to people that will enjoy it. Encourage them to listen. That's how we're able to do these interviews for free and keep bringing them to you guys. But you have a gift that you would like to offer to our listeners. Maybe you can tell us a little bit about that and where they can get it.
Yes. So you can get it on our website. So just go to CozyMind, CozyMind. And we have up there an assessment where you can see which areas of the performance diamond are your strengths, which ones are your weaknesses, and then we have an estimate of the time that you can gain back by implementing some of these areas of the performance diamond that you might be weaker in. So it's a cool. Nice little snapshot of where you can go next.
Yeah, I like it a lot. And that's so CozyMind.me. And where do they go on the website to get that gift? Is there like something in the nav bar?
We'll be putting both a button up and we'll add a page directly to the quiz as well. So there'll be a button to go to the free quiz, and we'll add a page for it also. Well,
Dr. Carol Larson, thank you so much for sharing your time and wisdom and experience and expertise with us today. I've really enjoyed our conversation, and let's do it again sometime.
Thank you so much for having me, Anthony. It's been a blast. And thank you to all of you out there as well. I hope you use at least one technique.
Use it or lose it. All right, guys, share this episode up. Appreciate you. And we'll talk to you soon in another episode of the Biohacking Secrets Show.